Today, we're supposed to be chapter 2. We've been studying chapter 1. First of all, soberness and godliness enjoined on Christians to be sober and godly. Number 2, brotherly love is essential to our character. And thirdly, Peter gives us some advice on proper growth, spiritual growth. This is what he has discussed up to this point. Now in verse 11, this is section 3, special duties commanded of Christians, beginning with verse 11 to chapter 4 and verse 5. First of all, he discusses conduct, our conduct before unbelievers. Sometimes, it's easy to forget that. I know I've forgotten it before. That other people are watching us. I remember one time, a long time ago, up there in Rose's store, and there was a preacher in that store, a very popular preacher at the time. Held meetings everywhere, very well thought of. And he got upset with a girl on the cash register and had a little tantrum there. And I never thought of him the same way after that. He did what I guess all of us do from time to time. He blew his cork. But when we do stuff like that, we have an adverse effect on people, what they think of us. If they think of us as being a godly people, it may tarnish that view just a little bit if we come across with a bad attitude. They may not think we're what they once thought we were. And that's sad. I mean, because, everybody does get upset occasionally. It's just unfortunate that when we do, somebody will see us do it. And it'd be nice if nobody knew it was us. But, beloved, I beg you as sojourners and pilgrims, abstain from fleshly lusts, which war against the soul. Our citizenship is in heaven, Paul said. I'm an American, but more important, I'm a citizen of the kingdom of God. That's where my ultimate citizenship lies. That's where I'll spend eternity, is in heaven with God. Everything in this world has to be second place to the kingdom of God. That comes first. We're strangers here. We're pilgrims, sojourners. We're temporary visitors. The song, this world is not my home. I'm just passing through. My treasures are laid up somewhere beyond the yew. How true that song is. We are very temporary. I've always used a simple example of going to a motel. When we're in a motel in Florida for a week's vacation, we'll pay what it costs to rent the motel for the week, but we're not going to spend our money to update the motel. We're not going to paint it or buy new carpet and all that junk. Why? It's not ours. Why would you invest money? It's not yours. It'd be nice if we could have the same attitude towards what we think is ours now. I live in a house that I call mine, but as good as I do, it's not mine. One day, more than likely, I'll leave it and somebody else will take over. It's the way everything's going to go. I got land I walk on. One day, somebody else is going to walk on it. I won't be walking there anymore. It's not mine. I'm just using it for a while, and I got to give it up because this world is not my home. I'm just passing through. These sojourners and pilgrims that inspired writers come off with from time to time are stated to remind us of that very fact. There's nothing permanent here except our relationships, the relationships that go on to heaven. Now that's permanent, But as far as the material world, nothing's permanent. So why invest so much in it? It doesn't really make sense. It makes no more sense than buying new carpet in a motel room in Florida. Why would you do that? Surely you find something to spend your money on better than that. Surely we can find something to invest ourselves in better than this. Would Jesus say, lay up your treasures in heaven? Because they're going to be there when we leave here. Having the right attitude of our temporary status would be very profitable for us if we keep that in mind. Anyway, he's begging them, reminding them, you are just temporary beings here. Therefore, why don't you abstain, stay away from, withdraw from, refrain from those fleshly lusts which war against the soul. Now, everybody has them. You can't say you're above it because you're not. The lust of the flesh, lust of the eye, the pride of life. We're all tempted in these three ways. This is the material side of a human being. We're composite beings. We're made of flesh and spirit. The spirit, the flesh is, it craves things of the world. Food. The flesh craves food. The flesh, it craves sexual fulfillment, and the list goes on and on and on. There are certain things that the flesh wants, just like there's certain things that the spirit wants. The spirit wants something more than what we find in the world. That's why there's never enough money. No matter how much money you make, you always want to make more. Why? It's because you can't be fulfilled with money. It just can't fill us up. We're spirit beings. We're looking for something more than just money. So no matter what we feed ourselves with in this material world, there will never be satisfaction, because you can't satisfy the spirit person with the material world. There's nothing in the world. It's like angels. What in this world appeals to an angel? They're spirit beings, and they're above such things. We are as well, but we have to control our fleshly appetites. You're going to have them. You remember what the Hebrews author said about our Lord. He was tempted in all points like we are. Jesus was tempted just like any other man. Being a man, he would have had, men have fleshly desires, sexual temptations. Well, if Jesus was tempted in all points like we are, then he did too. He was tempted. The difference was he didn't sin. He didn't think. He didn't ponder on it. Whenever an urge struck him, he would change the channel and get off that subject. He wouldn't allow it to control his thought, his mind. Being tempted isn't a sin. It's something that's going to happen. And you can't stop it from happening. It's just going to happen. But what we can stop is we can keep it from controlling our mind. We can keep it from being something that we ponder, which we ought not, fantasize, whatever you want to call it. That can be controlled. But as far as the general temptation goes, if Jesus could be tempted and he never sinned, then you and I can be tempted and never sin also, if we refrain from sinning. That's it's hard to do, because it feels so good. It's the pleasure of sin that's really appealing. Abstain from the fleshly lusts. These things war against the soul. Paul has a good discussion on that in Romans 7, verses 14 through 24. The battle between the flesh and the spirit. Again, as composite beings, we're material, and we're flesh and we're spirit. These two are at odds with one another. The flesh craves things of this world. The spirit craves things of another world. And there's a contest between the two. And Paul talks about that in Romans chapter 7. It's a good discussion. It takes a lot of years, I think, to appreciate what he says, but he talks about the difficulty of it. Sometimes there's so much about ourselves we don't understand. I want to do good. I want to do the right thing. And before I know it, I'll commit a sin. Maybe in my mind I commit a sin. And I think, well, what do I do that for? I mean, I just said I'm not going to do that, and then I turned around and did it. And I don't understand. I get aggravated with myself. You a sorry dog, you ain't no Kim. I mean, you just feel so much like nothing because you seem to not be able to control some things. They got you before you know it. Nobody else knows that. You don't know what stuff traps me. I don't know what traps you, but we get trapped. And we commit a sin when we're bound to determine we're not going to do it. And yet we do it anyway. Paul said he did that too. He said, I do what I don't want to do, and I don't know why I did it. I don't understand. And how many times have you felt that way? I know what I did was wrong. I don't know why I did it, though. I did it before I thought about it, and here I am. I've committed a sin, and we have to ask the Lord to forgive us. But in the meantime, we feel so unworthy of being able to even converse with the Lord because we feel like we're just not good at all. But when you read what Paul had to say, you'll understand that even the apostles, they go through the same thing that you and I do. I don't know what all thoughts entered the Lord's mind, but I know he was plagued by temptation just like any other man. I remember I heard a discussion one time at a lectureship. I don't remember which one, but this man, talking about the Lord being tempted. He said, well, I would say that probably when he was a teenager, he had pimples on his face. And he was tempted, being ashamed and all that. And this woman, man, she got mad. Oh, boy. She stood up. She dressed him down. She said, my Lord didn't have pimples on his face. What does it mean? He was tempted in all points like we are. I don't know if he had pimples on his face, but he was tempted in a lot of ways. And it's strange to us that he was, but he was. He said so himself. But we can learn a lot. I'm not saying we need to make excuses for ourselves. We don't. But what I will say is this. We're not useless. And we're not hopeless. And we're not beyond salvation. Just because we sin and we don't know why we did it. Because Paul did. And he was a saved man. And if Paul did that and he was a saved man, then, well, I can be a saved man too. Sometimes I think we judge ourselves too harshly. We need to judge ourselves like the Lord does. Be a little more understanding, not making excuses, but understanding our weaknesses and our fallibility. Because, hey, we're going to have to deal with it one way or the other. And it's not fun at all. In 1 John 2:16, the apostle said, all that is in the world, Lust of the flesh, lust of the eye, and the pride of life is not of the Father. This is of the world. It's of the world, and it appeals to the flesh. Okay? It's a temptation that we all have to endure and deal with. In Galatians chapter 5, verses 16 through 21, the Apostle Paul said, I say then, walk in the Spirit. Why, Paul? Why walk in the Spirit? If you walk in the Spirit, if you got your mind set on the Spirit, and this is how you're taking your steps, step by step by step in the Spirit, you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. If your mind is occupied with walking in the Spirit, you won't walk in the flesh during that time frame. I mean, sooner or later, you're not going to be walking in the Spirit. Your mind's going to wander off, and you're going to think something you ought not think. But the more we stay engaged with the lofty things in life, the fewer distractions we have by the lust of the flesh, the eye, and the pride of life. When we got our mind focused, more than likely, most of us probably are not tempted as much when we're in a worship service as we are when we're maybe at home watching the television. You know, at home watching the television, you see stuff you don't want to see. You know, your mind explores. But here we got our minds on other things. If you're walking in the Spirit, you're not going to fulfill the lust of the flesh. Why? For the flesh lusts against the Spirit. This is us. You talk about the Battle of Armageddon. Battle of Armageddon. That's all you ever hear. Battle of Armageddon. I think I've always thought that the Battle of Armageddon, the greatest battle mankind faces, is simply the battle between the flesh and the Spirit. We're at war with ourselves, and that's the worst kind of war of all, because it's in here. When you talk about Iran, you're talking about over there. But when you talk about the war that Paul's talking about, you're talking about an internal war. The flesh against the Spirit. Part of me wants to be good. Part of me wants to be bad. Question is, who wins? And that's up to me. I call the shots. The flesh lusts against the Spirit, Spirit against the flesh. These are contrary to one another, very different from each other, the flesh and the Spirit, so that you do not do the things that you wish. You want to do what's right. You want to do what's good, but you don't. Why? Because the flesh lusts against the Spirit. And sometimes the flesh deceives us, and before we know it, we're hooked in sinning. James discusses that a lot in chapter 1. Temptation being like bait to a fish. A fish is in a rock, and he can see the bait come down, but the fish is cautious, and he swims back and forth, and he gets to looking at the bait, and the bait, boy, looks pretty good, big old fat worm, and that fish is going yum, 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 and he's sitting there going back and forth in that rock, and all of a sudden it gets the better of him. I want that worm. And he comes out of his hiding place. He gets closer and closer to the worm. He's being tempted by this worm, by this bait, and before you know it, he opens his mouth and snap, you got him in the boat. James said that's the way sin works. We are tempted. We are lured out of our place of safety. And if we watch too long, we'll bite. And that's when we commit sin. The flesh and the Spirit, it's odd. It's an odd thing to me that we have this war within ourselves, but we do. You know, in the cartoons, remember they used to make the little angel on one shoulder and the little devil on the other shoulder? Well, the little devil, of course, is the flesh. The little angel is the Spirit. And this individual is fighting with itself. And even though that's a cartoon, the moral of the story is pretty accurate, because that's what goes on within us. I beg you, as sojourners and pilgrims, abstain from fleshly lusts which war against the soul, having your conduct honorable among the Gentiles. Behave yourselves, so that when the Gentiles look at you, they marvel, because you're good. You don't engage in what would be considered evil activity. Have your conduct honorable among the Gentiles, that when they speak against you as evildoers, they may, because of your good works, which they observe, they've seen for themselves, they may glorify God in the day of visitation. They may turn by watching the way you behave yourself. By being good, even when you're being persecuted, you can have an effect on your persecutors. During the first 3 centuries of the church, there were a number of instances where Christians died a martyr's death, and they did so very gallantly. And because they did, they had an effect even on the very people that put them to death, because they believed so strongly in what they were dying for. There's one man, can't remember his name. He's 84 years old. I forgot his name. But they put him on a stake and put wood on it all around him. And they set him on fire. And this man was 84 years old. And they said his fingers lit up like candles. And he mentioned that. He said, my fingers are burning like candles, but feel my heartbeat and see if my heartbeat isn't calmer than yours. And he would say things like that to him back and forth.
Was it Ignatius?
No, it wasn't him.
Polycarp?
I believe it was Polycarp. I believe that is right. And then he sung a hymn. And there he is. He's singing praise to God, and he's on fire. And these people are watching him. Yeah, I believe it was Romans that set him on. Yeah, it was Romans that set him on fire. They were watching him, and his belief was so strong that it had an effect on most people that were present at the time. He had his conduct honorable. And even though they put him to death, they wouldn't have been able to say anything against him or say anything bad about him, because he was such a good man, and he was a man of such incredible faith that they marveled. They marveled at it. No telling how many of those people may have been converted in days to come. But there were a lot of people that were converted by the martyrs, because, the all-consuming question, why would a person lay down their life unless they actually believed that they were laying down their life for a very good reason? And that had a toll on people. It led to many conversions. And this is what Paul is saying here. Having your conduct honorable, even though they might be adversaries, still behave yourself well, like Jesus did. When he was reviled, he didn't revile in return. Whatever they did to him, he didn't retaliate. He just kept on being who he was, and he turned the world upside down, just a matter of time. And now Paul's saying, or Peter's saying rather, that you can do the same thing if you can control your conduct. Boy, it's hard to do, I tell you that. Some people do it though. Some people do. I've seen people that did it. James Paul, I remember James Paul. There was nobody like James Paul. I guess he got mad sometime or another. I don't know. I never seen him. I seen him take a lot of stuff that he didn't deserve, and he always kept his composure. Always. Nobody was going to be able to say anything about him. Well, some people did, I guess, but I couldn't see anything man ever did that was wrong. You know everybody sins, and I used to wonder about James Paul. I wonder what in the world he could have done, because I couldn't imagine him committing a sin. He almost walked on water in my eyes, but I thought he was such a marvelous person. He may not have been that way all his life, but he was that way when I knew him, and he was a perfect example of what Peter's talking about here. Anyway, I got to quit talking about him. I start missing him too much. We're going to number 2, submission to civil rulers. Boy, it's a tough one, huh? Verses 13 through 17. Therefore, submit yourself to every ordinance of man for the Lord's sake, whether to the king as supreme or to governors, as to those who are sent by him, for the punishment of evildoers and for the praise of those who do good. Submit yourselves to every ordinance of man. Oh, man. Paying taxes and using that tax money to murder babies. It rubs me so raw I can't hardly see straight. What do you do? Well, according to the Lord, you give Caesar what belongs to Caesar. You give to God what belongs to God. I've tried to do that, and I don't want to. I have a very hard time with that. I really do. I don't mind at all paying taxes to make the country work. That doesn't bother me at all. But when it comes to all this nonsense stuff they spend money on, it really, really rubs me wrong. And I tried to figure out how to deal with it for a long time because I didn't like it. And then finally the answer came to me. The Lord told us how to handle it. Submit yourselves to every ordinance of man for the Lord's sake. Don't do it for the people who want to commit abortions. Don't do it for the people who don't want to work. Do it because this is what the Lord would have you to do. And because you belong to Him, you're going to do what He would have you to do. And when I thought about it that way, it was a whole lot easier. To give money to people who are going to use it to commit atrocities. My place is to give Caesar what's Caesar, and God what God, and let the Lord take care of the rest. And when I got that in my head, I got to where I could calm down, because I was very angry for a while back. Well, I hadn't been a Christian long at the time, and I had a hard time with that. I really did. The purpose of government, one of the purposes of government, in order to, the punishment of evildoers. The government is supposed to punish evil and it's supposed to praise those who do good. You notice the words "for the" are italicized in that last sentence. For the means they're not there in the original text. This is how the text reads. To governors as to those who are sent by him, for this is their job, the punishment of evildoers and praise of those who do good. It's a two-pronged responsibility that the government has. Number one, punish evildoers. Number two, praise those who do good. This is the work and responsibility of civil authority. It doesn't always work that way, but that's the way it's supposed to work, and they're going to have to give an account for that one of these days. It doesn't matter if you're a president or governor or whatever, God has given the president certain responsibilities, and he's got to fulfill those responsibilities because he will be judged according to God's law in the day of the visitation. But our responsibility is to do what we do because the Lord wants us to do it, and let him take care of the rest, because it's way over my head, and all I get is heartburn. For this is the will of God. This is what God would have us to do, that by doing good you may put to silence the ignorance of foolish men. By doing good, those who would accuse you are not going to be able to accuse you because they don't have anything to accuse you of. Even when they treated you badly, you didn't do anything in retaliation, and they have nothing to accuse you of. As free people, not using your liberty as a cloak for vice, but as bondservants of God, not using our freedom as though we have special liberties that other people do not have, which is what some people did. There were a group of people back in the day known as Gnostics, and these people claimed to have a special knowledge, a knowledge that all people didn't have. They were superior to others, and they used what they called special knowledge as a means to do things they wanted to do that really weren't allowed by the Lord. Honor all people, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the king. Honor all people, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the king. That can be hard to do too. Honoring the king. In our case, it would be president, of course. That can be very hard to do. Very hard to, golly, so hard. When Biden was president, oh man, I had a fit. How do you honor that? You honor the office of a president. No matter who's running the office, we honor the office, the seat of power, the place where God placed the authority, and God, regardless of who the guy is sitting in the chair, the Lord can take care of business, and he does. Our responsibility, again, is just do what God said. Honor all people, love the brotherhood, fear God, and honor the king. You can tell this was always a hard one for me. It's gotten easier through the years, but from time to time, it's still hard. Okay, good. Let's get out of there. Duties of servants to masters, verses 18 through 25. Boy, this was one that would have been hard too, I think. I don't know what it's like to be a servant, slave. I guess they had a different way of looking at things, given their perspective of life. But for me, this would have been very hard to do. Be submissive to your masters with all fear, not only to the good and gentle masters, but also to the harsh masters. Be submissive even to your harsh masters. That would have been very hard to do, I think. that just, to me, it would go against a person's nature. The word servant is doulos. It's a common term. But in this place, you're using the word oikets. It's a milder form of slave. It's a household slave, a person with household duties and responsibilities. Slaves were addressed frequently in the New Testament. A lot of Christians were slaves. Their perspective of life was very different than ours. Some had been slaves all their life. Some had become slaves. But I guess when you're a slave, you either learn to get along or you're going to die, one or the other. Have a miserable life until you die. If you're going to deal with the situation as it is, I guess you would need to be good even to those who are harsh. A lot of people criticize the Lord that he was in favor of slavery. I don't believe that's the case at all. For one man to own another, I don't think is the ideal situation. But being that was the situation, slaves had one or two choices. They weren't strong enough to overthrow the powers that be. They were slaves, and they were going to be slaves. They could either learn to deal with it and live, or learn to fight it and most likely die. They could do one or the other. If the Lord had condemned slavery, had he said all slaves should be made free and all masters should relinquish their hold over their slaves, had he done that, there may have been an uprising. The people that rose up may have been squashed, and that could have been the end of the Christian system before it ever had a chance to get started. It wasn't going to be overthrown, at least not that day. It was going to be overthrown. The Lord knew how to overthrow slavery. He knew what needed to be done in order to erase it being legal for one man to own another man. He knew how to get that job done. And here's how he did it. Servants, be submissive to your masters with all fear, not only to the good and gentle, but also to the harsh. Now, to us, this seems not true. But by being a good servant, even to a harsh ruler, there would eventually come a day when slavery would be eradicated. If they picked up a weapon to fight, they would have lost the battle before it even started. But if they fought in this manner, it might take hundreds of years. But eventually, slavery was eradicated for the most part, except in China and the United States and some other places. It's become something that's not acceptable, at least in polite company. But the way to do it is by being good. I had an uncle. He lived out in San Francisco, and he was out there, boy. He got divorced, and his wife just about cleaned him out. And he had a lot of money and stuff. And he ran and tried to hide. He come and live with us in Detroit. And, man, he was strange. We'd get on a bus, and there wasn't anywhere to sit. And he'd be standing there on the bus holding on to one of them poles, and he'd start talking to his invisible dog. He would try to pet the dog, and he'd do all matters of stuff like that. And before you know it, the person sitting there in that seat, they get up and move. They didn't want to sit next to that nut. And after they'd get up and move, he'd sit down. Usually I got a seat too. But he did all kinds of things like that. He was really out there. But the thing was, he could take somebody that was angry and he could calm them down. He used psychology on people. He's a psychologist. And he could talk to them in different ways depending on the situation. And he could get people to lighten up a little bit and get calmer. But one of the things he did often was he did good to people who didn't deserve to have good done to him. But he would do good anyway. I miss that guy. I was just a kid when he lived with us, but he would have made a good Christian. He never did, but he would have. He would have. I'm done. We'll have to stop. We'll